In today's video, we're talking about Kyle Busch. America, NASCAR. I'm kidding. I just got this at a vintage shop and I just like the tie-dye. I don't even know who he is.
Keep your mouth shut.
But actually in this video, we're talking about the art of the interview. I want to help you get better responses and get better interviews for your films. Interviews is one of my favorite part of documentary, and I want for you by the end of this video, it to be something that you're looking forward to, that you don't have to be nervous about, or that you know exactly how to get the best responses. So let's break down interviews really simply here. Every question that you're asking and every response, I would say, can be broken into just two categories, and that is information and emotion. Now, information is the context. This is the actual nuts and bolts of the story. This is the beginning, middle, and end. Emotion, this is what people are feeling, what they're thinking, what's going on in the inside. And to do a good interview, I would say you need a balance of both. And it's important to ask some questions about the information about the story, and then I would say jump over to emotions. And there's a reason for that, because if you spend too much time only asking emotional questions, you can burn someone out. And if you spend too much time on the information, people are going to be rambling. You're just going to have too much storytelling for your film and not enough of actually what made that person human. So let's break this down. I'm going to give you actually some of the questions you can ask and how to go about this. Now, if you want to know about how to do interviews for clients, I just did a video about this recently. This is for more commercials. This video, we're talking more about if you're telling someone's story or a bigger documentary story about a larger topic. The first step I'll say is you should have a brief idea of the actual story that someone is telling, so you can actually make your questions built around the beginning, middle, and end of that story. When you're coming up with your questions for the information, the context side, I would encourage you to do a quick pre-interview with the person, but don't make that pre-interview too long, because if you get the person talking too much, you might end up losing all the best responses that they would have, and you won't be filming them. You also have to ask yourself, who is this person in the film? Are they the main character? Do I need a lot of their story? Or are they supporting the actual film? You know, for the case of my film 58 Hours, there was a few key reporters who were kind of the main crux of the film, and they had a lot of firsthand experience with this story. But then there was also a couple townspeople, people who were in the town who helped support that story. So I knew what story I needed each person to be telling, and then that way I could make really precise questions, and my interviews weren't going for hours and they weren't aimless. I was assertive with what I wanted to ask. And questions that will help you get the context and the right information are the who, what, when, where. Not so much why. I'll explain that when we talk about emotions. But these are questions about who was there, what had happened, when did it happen, what did you see? In the case of my tornado film, these were questions for Ricky when I was asking him, when did you see your first tornado? Where were you? What had happened? What was it like? This is when you want to transition over to emotions. This is when you begin asking people questions like, what were you feeling in that moment? How did that experience seeing your first tornado change your life? And if you're finding people are struggling articulating this, what I do is I kind of mix the context and emotion at the same time. I say, hey, let's picture yourself back there. What were you feeling? If you can remember in that moment, what was a thought that passed your mind? And then the most important question to follow up is, with why. Why did you feel that? Or can you tell me a bit more about that? Or I love asking sometimes, help me understand that more. That's interesting. I encourage people as I'm listening to them in the interview, letting them know that the information they're giving me is good. Even if it's not necessarily important for the film, I don't want them to get discouraged through the interview.
Kyle Busch for president and or mayor.
Another trick I use when people aren't necessarily giving me the responses is it's sometimes easier for someone to agree or disagree with a statement rather than come up with one on their own. So if I'm perhaps imagine interviewing for Ricky, talking about the tornadoes, which by the way, we will be releasing this tornado film very soon, I promise.
One eternity later.
But sometimes when I'm interviewing someone, I'll say, I could imagine if I was watching my first tornado, I would feel like I was small, like life was really big, or that the heavens had opened up, or that God was angry, or something like this. And I'll give them that. I go, is that what you were feeling? Or how does it differ for you? And it gives them a place to either disagree or agree with, and you can get momentum back in your responses. Jumping back to context, one thing I want to warn you about asking questions about context and information is people will often blab. They give lots of detail about random things that matter to them, but no one really cares about them. This is okay though. What's not okay is that you don't get them to summarize their point. What I'll often tell someone after they've been blabbing for a while, I go, hey, that's great. We have so many great details. Just for safety for our edit, could you summarize that in 2 to 3 sentences? And I find often their first response, they'll still give me like 5 to 10 sentences. And then I say, that's great. Can we just try it one more time, 2 to 3 sentences? Summaries are so important for your edit because a good documentary doesn't necessarily have a ton of talking, but every word does count in the edit. That's the tough thing, is when someone starts blabbing and telling a lot of stories, if you're new in film, you'll think, wow, I'm capturing a story. They're telling a story. I am filming a good story. I am a storyteller. I am going to finish a film that is a good story.
And the Oscar goes to?
Not necessarily. You're just gonna have a lot of detail that might not matter. And this is where jumping back into some emotion questions and then back into information questions is a good balance throughout your interview, because if you're only spending time on emotion, you might burn the person out. And this is another warning sign, is when people get emotional, it can feel very exciting. You've got the camera out and you're capturing this big, beautiful cinematic moment of someone pouring out their emotions.
A lot of the people look at them as a lost cause. And we're not a lost cause.
But if those are the only types of questions that you ask, you won't ever have context. I made this mistake a lot in my early films. I would go down this track where I would see the person getting emotional or getting excited about something, and I would just spend those times on those questions because it felt like something was happening on set. But in the end, I would come to the edit and I would have no context. There'd be no information about where their story started and what was the middle and how did it end. And then I just had all these responses about people talking about how they felt. And that's not that interesting without context. You need both responses. Hi.
Hello.
Do you know what's the only thing worse than people who ramble too long in interviews? Is bad lower thirds. And do you know what Adobe Premiere has? Is the worst lower third selection. It's trash. It's absolute trash. But do you know what's really cool is recently Storyblocks has introduced a new plugin directly into Adobe Premiere so that you can access all millions upon millions of their assets right inside Adobe Premiere. You don't have to leave the software. Just with a few clicks, you can grab new lower thirds, new titles, and slap them on. So if you're doing an interview, you can add a new title right away. This keeps things really simple. I know my editor, Santi, he loves it.
Actually love it so much that I made that.
No talking, Santi. Get back to editing. You've been on vacation. And Storyblocks is royalty free, so when you drag that template or whatever you're using right in their plugin onto your timeline, you don't have to worry about licensing it. It's all part of your subscription, which they have really flexible subscriptions. You can get a month at a time. You don't have to be locked in for years. And what's great too is that this plugin now also works in After Effects. So check them out. Put a description below. Storyblocks will save you time in your editing. I can guarantee you that. Lastly, one other type of question is revelation. This is what the person has learned. You can literally ask, going back, how have you changed? What have you learned? How are you a different person through this experience? Or did it impact your life? Has it made you a different person? What new perspectives do you have? These types of questions are really helpful because any good film shows the growth of someone. It shows how they've changed or perhaps how they haven't changed. And if you can get some questions about people reflecting on this is often when you'll have someone pause and go, that's a good question. One way I like doing this is I ask someone, if you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell them? What have you learned? What would you want that person to know? And this gives a chance for someone to reflect on who they were and who they've become. These are great responses to add a bit more color and depth to your film. But again, always know what purpose this interview serves in your film. Do some research. Imagine this interview as a character in your film and where do they fit into the plot of the film. If you want more information on interviewing, we've done a ton of videos on this channel about interviews, but better yet, and you know what I'm gonna say, we have the Art of Documentary. This is our course and academy. We have 200 videos about documentary filmmaking and running a business. And we have a bunch of videos entirely about interviews, how to ask better questions, how to set up interviews. And the responses we get from our students about these videos is incredible. They say it's game-changing for the way they're approaching their films. You can do a deep dive in my channel about interviews. I love interviews. I think it's a really important part of documentaries. If you can do good interviews mixing in with actual real life, real-time verite type style scenes, you're gonna have a powerful documentary film. A good interview is only as good as your understanding of story is. So make sure to learn that. And we have so much about storytelling in the Art of Documentary if you're interested, and also on this channel. Thanks for coming by today, and I hate goodbyes. See you in the next one.